Alrighty, YouTube, Niner Empire, what is going down? Welcome back to another video. So obviously, we're at a point in time in the season where teams are starting to fire their head coaches. Teams are starting to fire their general managers. And with that comes teams reaching out to the 49ers about interviewing some of their top executives or some of their top coordinators. And that's exactly what is happening. So the Washington Commanders fired Ron Rivera last night. They fired their GM as well, and now they are requesting permission to interview Adam Peters for their GM job, which, to be honest, is no surprise. Adam Peters has been one of the most sought-after GMs probably in the last 2-3 years. He's been interviewed by a lot of teams. Last year, he declined to interview with the Titans and the Houston Texans for their GM job. But at some point in time, I think Adam Peters will leave. I think he could have very well left 2 years ago and been a GM at that point in time, but he decided to stay with the Niners. Last year, he decided to stay after declining to interview with the Titans and the Cardinals. But this year, like I said, I mean, there's always a point in time where some of your top executives or some of your top coordinators end up leaving to take on bigger roles with other teams. And this year, I kind of feel like it's probably a year where Adam Peters leaves. But all in all, Washington has reached out to the 49ers about interviewing assistant GM Adam Peters for the 49ers, of course, to be their head of football operations. Now, this is happening. They requested permission. The 49ers allowed that permission, and Adam Peters is taking the interview this week. So this interview will take place at some point this week. It's obviously pretty significant because, again, he's without a doubt one of the most sought-after general managers in the NFL currently, or I guess top executives. He's an assistant GM, but that's more so like a top executive, I guess you could say. But yeah, I mean, so like I said, I think when it comes to Adam Peters, at some point in time, he's going to leave, and it very well could be this year. There's a lot of teams that are going to need GMs, head coaches. Adam Peters could very well take a job elsewhere with a team that obviously has a need at GM. So along with that, though, the Las Vegas Raiders, obviously same with them. They kind of cleaned house this year. Midway through the season, fired Dave Ziegler, fired Josh McDaniels. They're going to need both a head coach and a general manager, and they're requesting to interview Adam Peters as well to be their GM, so not their head of football operations. So, again, not surprised. You know, Adam Peters, it kind of feels like this could be his last year. He's just ready to take on a bigger role. He's been ready. I don't know if he's wanted to over the past couple years, hence to why I guess he's, stayed with the 49ers and he hasn't left yet. But, yeah, so definitely I would expect more teams to obviously, without a doubt, reach out to Adam Peters to try and interview him. At some point in time, John Lynch is going to lose all these executives. This team's built like a gauntlet. Adam Peters has had a very big hand in helping this team, get built the way it has been getting built. Again, I wouldn't be shocked if he leaves. I hope he doesn't. I hope he decides to stay. But, again, being one of the most sought-after executives in the NFL, it's probably tough in his position to handle all that. But at the end of the day, like I said, I think this is kind of expected at some point, so I'm not surprised. But along with Adam Peters, Steve Wilks is actually being sought out after by the Los Angeles Chargers. They've requested to interview him as their head coaching job. So obviously Steve Wilks, 49ers defensive coordinator. The Niners defense has had another great year once again. They rank currently 3 in points, number 8 in total yards. They've also finished number 4 in defensive DVOA. Obviously with Steve Wilks, It was a little shocking that Carolina didn't elect to hire him last year over Frank Reich, but they did so. And with Steve Wilks, of course, top coordinator in the league, one of the top assistants in the league for a team. And this would be his second stint as a head coach, of course, if he decides to accept a job somewhere. He was the head coach for the Cardinals in 2018. Didn't really go too well whatsoever. But it seems like Steve Wilks wants to get another shot at being a head coach. So I wouldn't be shocked if he decided to leave either after this season is over. But obviously there's a lot of unfinished business, with the Niners, with the defense and things of that nature. And Steve Wilks is probably not thinking too much right now about, being a head coach. But I tell you something that's also going to make it even more tough to keep guys like Adam Peters and Wilks is if we win the Super Bowl. That's going to be even more tough. Really, in all reality, though, that won't matter. I think they're both going to be heavily pursued by other teams out there. But I definitely could see that their stock going way up if this team's able to pull off a Super Bowl win this year. So, I guess obviously expect, don't be shocked if Steve Wilks is eventually hired as a head coach. Don't be shocked if Adam Peters leaves to be a GM. Again, these guys are both top assistants for the Niners. They're both going to be sought out after year in and year out if they stay on the 49ers. So at some point in time, these guys are probably going to leave eventually. It could be this year. I think it's probably more likely than not that we could lose both of these guys this year, but who knows? Because there's always reports that come out, in February and March about some of these guys doing bad in interviews and things of that nature. So we'll see what happens, but stay tuned. Obviously, I'll continue to keep you guys updated on these guys interviewing with teams and things of that nature. So Chargers have requested permission to interview 49ers defensive coordinator Steve Wilks for their head coaching job. Las Vegas Raiders have requested permission to interview 49ers assistant GM Adam Peters for their GM role, and then along with the Las Vegas Raiders, the Commanders have requested permission to interview Adam Peters as their head of football operations. So let me know what you guys think, of course. Like I said, at some point in time, these guys are probably going to leave, and this feels like a year where it probably could happen. But obviously, we'll see what happens. I'll continue to keep you guys updated. With that being said, as always, go Niners, and I'll see you guys in the next one.